video game!
My top 10 NES games. What are my top 10 games? And this is just based on my personal experience with them. It has nothing to do with being a critic, because everybody may consider a game one of the greatest games of all time. If I don't have a lot of experience with it, I'm not going to throw it in my top 10 just because it's a, classic game that everybody considers one of the GOATs. Because that's just, that's being phony, I think. You're putting in things that people expect instead of your own personal top 10. So that's what I'm going to be doing here, is my personal top 10. And I also have a stack of honorable mentions. The honorable mentions will not be in any order. What games you would have had here that I don't, I want to know. Like Mega Man 2. Like, a lot of people consider that one of the greatest NES games. I've barely played that game in my life. So I'm not going to put it in my top 10 just because everybody expects it to be there and it's considered a GOAT. That's not what I'm doing. So these are my personal picks. So let's start with the honorable mentions. And the first one is Double Dragon. Now, I remember going back to this as an adult, and I was shocked that it didn't have two-player. Double Dragon 2 had two-player, but this one I played more. And I just remember the music. It was the first, kind of beat-em-up game that I ever played, so I had good experiences with Double Dragon. Gets an honorable mention. Speaking of Double Dribble. Another honorable mention. It's a fun basketball game. I didn't know any of the exploits as a kid. The corner three always goes in. There was no cheese playing when I was a kid with this. It was legit basketball. They had cutscenes for dunks, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Super Mario Brothers 2. I know a lot of people love this game. A lot of people don't like this game. It was originally a different game that they made into Mario game for the United States. I think most people know that story. I'm not going to retell it, but I did play Mario 2 a lot as a kid, and I had fun with it. DuckTales. Another honorable mention. This is a game I first beat within the last, I'd say 5 years or so. I never beat this as a kid. I loved it. I was terrible at it. I learned how to play it as an adult and get through it, and it's a fun game. One of the Capcom Disney games. Honorable mention. Bases Loaded. This was one of the first baseball games that I played. This and RBI Baseball, and I was flipping back and forth. Which one would I have on honorable mention? And I went with this one because I remember just the drama with this game, because there was one team that had a player named Paste, I think was his name, and he had 60 some home runs, and the dude would smack a home run all the time. But if you hit him with a pitch, he would charge the mound and then get thrown out of the game. So I remember playing with friends as kids, and we made rules that you couldn't hit him, because if somebody took that team, the other person would hit him on purpose, so he would get thrown out of the game, and then he couldn't smack any home runs against us. But Bases Loaded was fun. It had the behind the pitcher camera angle that you always saw on TV, and baseball games didn't have that. Back on the NES, it was always, if you think of RBI Baseball, the pitcher up top pitching down to the batter at the bottom. But this was cool because it had the actual camera angle that you would see on TV. The next honorable mention, RC Pro-Am, is a fun kart racing game, and made by Rare. You guys know Rare made so many great games on the Nintendo 64. They also made Donkey Kong Country on Super Nintendo. But this is a fun racing game. I remember never understanding how to progress in this game, because it was you had to get letters to spell out Nintendo, and then you upgraded your car, and then it became harder. It was very confusing how to actually progress in this game to me as a kid, I remember, but I had a lot of fun.
Weird.
With RC Pro-Am. My next honorable mention is Mega Man 1, because this one I did play as a kid quite a bit. I never owned it myself, but one of my friends had it, and I always played it when I went over to his house, and I was absolutely terrible at it. But I loved the music. I loved being able to pick what stage you wanted to go to. I loved watching my friend play it because he was much better at it than I was. Castlevania 3. This game is hard as hell. Still, I cannot beat this game today. I can't. It's too hard for me. But it was awesome as a kid. The different paths, I remember I thought that was cool, where you came to the split and you could go and choose which way you wanted to go, and then learning that, oh, you can actually unlock more characters and you can use them. I had a lot of fun with this game as a kid. Never made it very far, but you know, with a lot of NES games as a kid, that was kind of the experience. You would play the same levels over and over until you got to the point that you couldn't pass it. And maybe someday you would progress a little further. Metroid. Why is Metroid not in my top 10? Because I never owned Metroid as a kid. This was another one I would play at friends' houses. And I've never beaten this game. This is another bucket list. I will beat this game. That is my goal. Metroid for the NES. I want to beat this game. Had fun with it as a kid. It blew my mind when I found out that Samus was a girl. The false rumors when you're a kid that there's a way to get her naked at the end of the game, which of course is not true. But, you know, kids, wherever those rumors start. Speaking of games I've never beaten, another honorable mention. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This game, also very hard. I remember loving this game, though, and I was a huge fan of the cartoon. I had a lot of fun with this game. Everybody knows the freaking swimming level to disarm the bombs, going through the seaweed. I remember the first time I passed that was like one of the greatest experiences on the NES for me. I would get to a point after the seaweed, and then I wouldn't beat the next level, and then I would stop for the day, and then the next time I played the game, I just did the same thing, the same levels over and over. You're going to see that as a theme with a few of these games that I never actually beat, and some of them I haven't even beat to this day. But it didn't matter. I'm going to play Turtles, and I'm going to get as far as I can get, and then I'm going to shut it off, and then I'm going to go play something else. Tecmo World Wrestling. There were some pretty good wrestling games on the NES, and there were some pretty crappy ones. I remember the first one I played was Pro Wrestling, and I had a good experience with that game. But all I wanted to do was take Starman and go to the top rope. That's all I remember, and jumped off. And then I played WrestleMania, and that game was bad. That game was bad. And I just remember like Andre the Giant's foot like bouncing across the screen. But this game, Tecmo World Wrestling, I remember playing this as I got a little older. In my opinion, it's actually the best wrestling game as far as doing a wrestling match on the NES. They had some pretty cool wrestlers with gimmicks, and you could do a lot of moves and go outside the ring, top rope, all that stuff, throw them off the ropes. This was fun for its time, and I think it was ahead of its time as far as wrestling games go. The next honorable mention is one I've actually played more as an adult than a kid, and I've come to appreciate how good this game actually is. I never liked it as a kid. Batman the video game. This game is really good, and I think it holds up well. I bet you if I would have appreciated this as a kid, it would be in my top 10, no doubt. But most of my experience with this game is as an adult. I didn't have it. My friends didn't have it. This was a rental as a kid, and I just remembered I was so bad at it that I couldn't get very far, so I just didn't like it. But as an adult, I've come to appreciate how great this game really is. Rygar. This game, I remember loving the music, loving the sound effects, boom, 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 when you would hit the enemy, climbing up, you know, using your grappling hook to climb up. I remember me and my friends never knew where to go in this game, and we didn't have Nintendo Power with this. Very similar to Metroid, I guess, where it wasn't a linear path, and you had to figure out where to go. But this game was really fun to control, and it was hard for me as a kid, but this game is really fun. Blades of Steel. This was a fun hockey game as a kid, just because like you could fight in it. That was the point of this game. I remember trying to get in fights. But this was my favorite hockey game on the NES, and I had fun with Blades of Steel. It's another Konami game that also made Double Dribble. So now we're going to get into the top 10. My top 10. Jeff's top 10. These are games over my lifetime I played a lot. They're games that I like to revisit as an adult. They're games that have shaped me as a video game player. My top 10 experience with NES games. Number 10. Super Mario Brothers. This game was going to be in my top 10. No chance in hell it wasn't going to be. This was the first NES game I ever played. It was at a friend's, and my mind was blown. The only thing I had played before I played this was Atari 2600, which I only played at friend's house. You know what Atari 2600 looks like. And then you play this, and you're like, this is unbelievable. And this was another game when I was very young, only did a few levels. And it was like 1-1, maybe beat 1-2, 1-3, I'm not getting past. That's how I was as a kid. But then, when you found the warp, When you learned about the warp, holy cow, I can go to 4-1? This was me as a small child playing Super Mario 1. 1-1, 1-2, 4-1 game over. Over and over and over and over in a loop. Until eventually, I got a little older, I got a little better at the game. But without this game, who knows if I would have ever been a video gamer. This game is the game that wanted to get a Nintendo. The first game I ever played for NES, my number 10, Super Mario Brothers. Number 9, Ninja Gaiden. You bet your ass I've never beat this game. Stage 3-2? That game over all the time? This game is so hard. But holy cow, is the movement in this game incredible. The music's incredible. The cutscenes. This was like the first game I remember with cutscenes. And that blew my mind. So this will be a game I guarantee you I will never beat in my lifetime. But as a kid, the experiences up to level 3-2, this was one of my favorite games, and it made number 9 on my list. That is good cover art, isn't it? And this was originally an arcade game, and I've never played it. That series has a reputation of being hard, but that game right there I have a lot of great memories of as a kid. All right, number 8, Baseball Stars. In my opinion, this is the best baseball game on the Nintendo. Why this game hit with me more than games like Bases Loaded, which was in my honorary RBI baseball, which would probably be in the next category. This game, you could create your own team. You could name your players. I was making myself on an NES game to play baseball. I thought that was insane. You could trade with, like, me, like my brother would have a team and I'd have a team. We could trade players with each other. The gameplay in this is crazy. I remember you could climb the wall to rob somebody of a home run, and that was mind-blowing to me at the time. The music is fun. You could do full seasons, which weren't very long. I think there were like 10 or 11 games or something, but it kept track of your batting average, home runs, and RBIs, and I thought that was sick. This was my favorite baseball game growing up on the Nintendo. Number 8 in my top 10 Baseball Stars. Number 7, Castlevania. I never beat this till I was an adult. It's very difficult. Still to this day, I struggle. The levels where Death is the boss, and then the last one with Dracula. Those I struggle on those. So like I still can't beat this game every time I play it. It's very difficult. I've only beat it. I probably beat it less than 5 times. I remember the music, the atmosphere was so cool as a kid. I remember not understanding why hearts did not refill my health. Everybody telling me stories of Dracula. But like all my friends knew about Dracula, but nobody could ever get there. It was funny. Like, so I never knew. Like, how do you know about Dracula? You've never been there. So I don't know if they read about it in a Nintendo Power or something. But to me, this game holds up. This game still holds up to today. Castlevania, absolutely amazing, challenging. Number 6, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game. This game, when you compare it to the arcade game, the actual arcade game, this game looks like absolute ass. But as a kid, when you would do anything to get to the arcade to play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that was the coolest game, man. That was the coolest game to play. They looked like the cartoon. You could play as any of the turtles. All 4 people could play all the turtles at the same time. You were going to fight Rocksteady. April's there. That game was amazing. It's coming out for Nintendo. We can have this at home. It didn't matter that this game looks not like look up there. Do you see that? That's Donatello from this game. I had somebody make that for me. That's Donatello from this game. But playing through this, you could only do 2 players, but you played with a friend. It was just, I don't know what it was about this game. There's Pizza Hut ads all over this. I remember the game came with a coupon for a free pizza. So you got the game, Mom, can you take me to Pizza Hut so I can get a free pizza with my coupon? This was also a Konami game, but this was back when Konami made games also under Ultra. I have great memories with this game. I still love playing it today, even though it is so bare bones and basic compared to the arcade game. It didn't matter. This was the version you could have in your house. That was it. That was the only options you had. Your parents were going to take you to the arcade. You didn't have any quarters. You weren't playing the game, but you could if you had this version at home. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, is my number 6. Number 5, the first game I ever beat on Nintendo, Contra. And the only way I beat this game was with the 30 lives Konami code. This game, you take away that 30 lives code, this game is freaking brutal difficulty. With 3 lives, bullets flying everywhere to try to get... I've never even come close. Never. I die so much in this freaking game, but I love it. The music was insane. Trying to get through all the levels to the bosses. I remember even as young kids not being able to beat the game sometimes on the 30 lives code because we would die so much. But the giant heart as the final boss was insane. You'd get mad at your friends because, like on the waterfall level, if you jumped too high and your friend was at the bottom of the screen, they would die. You would kill them. Remember getting mad at people for doing that. But this was the first game I ever beat thanks to the 30 lives code. It's still fun to this day. Contra, another Konami game. Number 4, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. I think I was in 6th grade. I remember we had a big class. The teachers had like a big 52-inch, what were they called back then? Projection TV? I can't remember. But they were ones that you could break easily, right? With like the soft screen. They had that in the class. And on our lunch break, like we had a Nintendo and we could play this game and playing it on like a 50-some inch screen back then was insane. Learning how to beat fighters in this game, Glass Joe, so freaking easy. And then you go on, the further you go, I remember like my first roadblock was like Piston Honda. That was the first one I had to really learn how to beat, and he's only like the 3rd fighter. And you know, when you're first playing this game, you don't understand that. But the gimmicks of all the fighters in this game, the controls, when I beat... okay, we're going to put an asterisk here. Because I never beat this version. I beat the re-release version Punch-Out, where they took Tyson out and replaced him with Mr. Dream. He's exactly the same, just looks different. I beat that version, but for some reason, I don't feel like I've really beat it because I never beat Tyson. But that was the other thing. Tyson was in this game. Mike Tyson was in... There's a real person in a Nintendo game. And I still remember the code to this day to get to Tyson. 007-373-5963. You put in that code, you can go straight to Mike Tyson, get your ass whooped. And I remember trying to... We would see how far we could make it into Tyson fight. None of us could beat it as a kid. In the first minute and a half, he hits you with one punch, and you're down. The pressure when Bald Bull was due his charge, and you're sitting there as a kid freaking nervous. Please let me hit him. Please let me hit him. When you finally learn the timing with Great Tiger to block his magic punches when he's teleporting all around. This is, I still think, the greatest boxing game of all time, and it's the least realistic boxing game ever released. But I still love this to this day. I still love playing this to this day. The best way to play this game is on an original Nintendo, on an old school CRT TV, so you don't have any lag. Number 4, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Number 3, The Legend of Zelda. This has turned into my favorite franchise of all time. It's my number 3 NES game. This was one of the first games I ever beat. This was a playground, cafeteria, pass secrets around with your friends games. Where to go? Where's level 2? Where's level 3? Where's level 4? That was always fun with a lot of these games. You know, there was no internet. You talk about what to do, and all the false rumors. I talked about the false rumor that we all believed as kids that there was a way to get Samus naked in Metroid. There was a lot of fake rumors, but you would pass around the real secrets, and you would learn together as kids on how to get through games. The adventure in this game, we beat level 1. Where are the heart pieces? Level 2, this one's tough. And then level 3. And getting through this as a kid was awesome. And I felt like I actually accomplished something when I beat this game for the first time as a kid. And this has spawned my favorite video game series to this day. Gold cartridge still looks incredible. And this one's even got some scratches on it. Yeah, this and Zelda 2. Nice gold cartridges. Still looks good today. My number 3 game, The Legend of Zelda. Number 2, Super Mario Bros. 3. This game today still holds up. Probably, if I really had to think about it, would be my number 1 Mario game of all time, ever. I remember I had the player's guide the Nintendo Power Player's Guide, which showed every level of this game and every secret. And I wish I still freaking had that today because it's just expensive as hell, but I don't. The hype around it was crazy because of the Wizard movie. And it was like you saw the commercials and it was getting back to the Mario 1 style, where Mario 2 was completely different. Mario can fly and there's a map and you can move around on the map, the airships, the boss fights. One of the greatest games of all time. It's my number 2 NES game. It still holds up today. I still love playing it today. Number 1. My number 1 NES game of all time. Tecmo Super Bowl. When you hear people talk about how great Tecmo Bowl was, they have no idea what the hell they're talking about. They're just saying it because other people say it. Tecmo Super Bowl was the game. This game had every single NFL team. It had real players. You did full seasons through the regular season through to the Super Bowl. It kept stats. This was like the first game that kept stats. 1991 this game came out. This is when the Bills were like good and making the Super Bowl. This game was out of stock all the time. I remember Electronics Boutique. I was on a waiting list for months. For months. You couldn't find the game. And my friend had it. And I used to, you not, I had my friend bring his instruction manual to school so I could read it. That, like, you talk about wanting to get home from school and play. I wanted to get to school so I could read my friend's instruction manual for this game. I wanted to go to his house all the time because he had this game and I wanted to play it. Do you guys know this game still holds up today, where they make new versions of this game every single year with current rosters? They talk about Bo Jackson. Tecmo Bowl was not the game. Bo Jackson was good in Tecmo Bowl. Tecmo Super Bowl was the game where Bo Jackson was unstoppable. This was the game. In my entire life, I've never played a game more than this. If you could tally up all the hours I've put into every single video game in my life, this is number 1 and number 1 by far. I used to, as a kid, I would play season after season after season. I would write down in a notebook the season results. I would make my own Pro Bowl teams based on the final leaders, stat leaders at the end of the season. Because you could change the Pro Bowl teams on here. I would put them in, and I would play the Pro Bowl game, and then I'd go on to the next season. Somehow, this is still my favorite sports game of all time. I don't know what the magic was with this game, gameplay wise. I don't know if kids today could pop this in and get it. I don't know, but to me, this is the greatest NES game of all time. It's one of my favorite games of all time. It's definitely my favorite sports game of all time. I've never played a game more than this. I can play it today and have fun with this. This was all I would do when I first got this game. I didn't want to do anything else. I remember I had my list written out, what I was going to do. I had my lineup. Oh, once I clinched the division, because that was cool. They had cutscenes. You clinch the division, it would say like AFC East champion, Buffalo Bills, and this little cutscene would play. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to take Thurman Thomas out once I've clinched the division, or once I've clinched home field, because I don't want him to get injured. That was another thing. Players could get injured on this game. So I would be like, all right, well, I had notes for this, because I couldn't get this game out of my head. So once I've wrapped up the playoffs, I'm not going to play Thurman Thomas. I'm going to put Kenneth Davis in at running back. Like, I was such a nerd for this game. I don't know. I never had a feeling for a video game ever in my life like this. Of course, the age factor played into it, right? Getting excited. But man, when I got that call, it was nuts. Mom, we gotta go to the city. I gotta go to the mall. I gotta go to Electronics Boutique. They have my game, Tecmo Super Bowl, my number 1 NES game of all time. So yeah, that's my list. Is there anything you guys would have had in there in your top 10 lists that I did not have? I want to know, and I want to know why.